Hello viewers! Whether it's a cold winter day as it is today or the middle of the summer, one thing's for sure, your engine needs to be cooled down. And for that it needs a fully functional cooling system, of which a coolant pump, or water pump as many call it, is one of the essential components. If it doesn't work correctly, your car will quickly overheat, causing severe and often irreversible damage. So to prevent that from happening, we'll find out what the water pump does, how to spot a faulty one, and most importantly, what to do if that's the case. Let's go! Should your water pump start to fail, you might notice a variety of symptoms, ranging from coolant leaks and the engine overheating to its temperature going up and down erratically. Or there might be a squealing or growling noise coming from under the hood. But to figure out if the water pump is to blame, we need to examine each of these possibilities in detail. Coolant leaks can happen because of many reasons, so a bad water pump isn't always to blame, but it's a possibility to consider. If the coolant is leaking from the front of the engine, you may want to check the pump. The gasket surrounding the water pump might be causing the leak, as could the seal on its shaft. When the leak is minor, it may not even reach the ground below the vehicle. Instead, it drips on the front of the engine and the heat dries it up quickly. If this is the case, you will see a white trail of dried coolant. Either way, you want to deal with the coolant leak right away. If too much fluid drips out, it could lead to an overheating engine and permanent damage. The coolant is responsible for keeping the engine temperature in normal operating range. If the temperature gauge starts to rise and the engine overheats, it's a sign that the coolant isn't doing its job. A failing water pump is one of the reasons for this occurrence, but it can also be caused by an air pocket in the coolant system or contaminated fluid. Mechanical failures can also be blamed, such as when the thermostat fails. If you discover that the water pump is the culprit, multiple things could have happened. It may just have gotten old or worn out. The impeller may have also been broken from freezing temperatures or debris. But regardless, continuing to drive with an overheating engine leads to massive failure, whether it's through a blown head gasket, a seized engine, or a warped cylinder head. Failing water pumps are known for making a unique squealing noise that comes from the front of the engine. It's similar to what you would hear when the serpentine belt makes noises. A failing water pump can also lead to a resistance and make the belt slip on the pulley, causing a strange noise. This problem is usually caused by worn-out shaft bearing. Once you hear the noises, you have no time left to waste because the water pump is failing. You should take these symptoms as a warning that it's time to take action. If steam or white smoke is coming from the radiator, you can bet that the engine is probably overheating, maybe because of a defective water pump. However, it can also happen because of a poor radiator cap, which can cause coolant to be lost. Whatever is causing the steam or smoke, you should pull your car over immediately. It's never wise to drive while the engine is overheating, not even for a short distance. It doesn't take long to harm the engine in ways that are unrepairable and require a replacement. While it's not as common, you could see the engine temperature fluctuating between normal and hot. This is because if the coolant can circulate and reduce the temperature, the engine is going to start overheating. However, it may drop slightly if you are driving at highway speeds and there is a lot of air circulation. Either way, if the temperature gauge ever reaches danger zones, you should have the cooling system looked at. The water pump is responsible for taking the coolant out of the radiator and moving it through the motor and then back to the radiator once again, so the cycle can continue. With a properly running water pump, the engine remains at a consistent temperature. As the coolant moves through the engine, it takes the heat away from it, and then as it moves back through the radiator, the heat is dissipated, allowing the fluid to re-enter the engine at lower temperatures. Obviously, if there is no circulation, the coolant will not provide cooling and the engine will overheat. In the majority of vehicles, the engine turns the belt that runs the water pump. The shaft on the water pump is connected to the vanes that rotate in conjunction with the shaft. This turning motion creates the suction that pulls the fluid from the radiator. As the fluid reaches the pump, centrifugal force pushes it into the outlet walls and down a drain that enters the engine block. The fluid travels through the cylinder heads before draining back to the radiator, where it can happen all over again. Most cars have a belt-driven water pump, which puts it somewhere on the timing side of the engine. You may try to find it somewhere among the auxiliaries run by the serpentine belt. Basically, once you eliminate things like AC compressor or power steering pump, you're quite likely to spot the water pump. Some cars, however, have a water pump driven by the timing belt, which makes finding it a bit more difficult. In most cases, various bits and covers need to be removed to gain access to it. The only way to know for sure is to reference a service manual or search for a diagram online. Knowing the location of the water pump can help you decide whether you want to replace it yourself or take it to a mechanic. If you see the temperature gauge climbing or you can hear strange noises coming from the water pump area, you should pull over and try to figure out what's going on. Some of the diagnosis isn't difficult to do at home with some simple tools, and here are some things to consider. Park on level ground. Turn the engine off. It's best to work with the cooling system when the engine is cooled off. Inspect the water pump pulley by gently wiggling it back and forth. You shouldn't see any movement here, and if there is any, you may need to replace the pump. Inspect the system for leaks. If you can find where the coolant is leaking from, you will have a better idea if the water pump is to blame. Look for the leak coming out of the water pump housing or around the gasket. If it's leaking, replace the pump. Inspect the coolant reservoir. If there is a leak, the coolant level will be lower. Leaks can also happen at the water pump gasket because of contaminated fluid, such as when you don't perform a coolant flush. In some cases, you won't be able to inspect the water pump without removing the timing cover. This can be a complicated procedure that most home mechanics aren't equipped for. As professional technicians, it's always our advice to reach out to a local repair shop if something feels too hard for you to accomplish. You would rather pay a little extra for the repair than have something else break. When speaking about the replacement costs, we have to factor in a couple or three things. First, the water pump itself. Its price may range between $100 to $400 or even more depending on the model. Then there's the pump's location within the engine bay, as this impacts how time-consuming the replacement might be, which is decisive if paying a mechanic. In most cases, this will take an hour or so, and as such, it shouldn't be too expensive. However, if you're unfortunate enough to have a water pump driven by the timing belt, the replacement could cost as high as $2,000. This is because, apart from the pump, the belt and its pulleys and tensioners need to be replaced during this procedure, which increases the whole price. Okay viewers, that would be all about the water pump, how to tell if it's not working properly and what to do if that's the case. I hope this video was helpful, and if so, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and share it with your friends. But if not and your car still keeps overheating, something else might be causing the issue. So to continue troubleshooting, check out other videos here or visit our site mechanicbase.com for more detailed automotive repair guides. Bye!